Since we've all been a student sometime in our lives, I'm sure you can relate to this frustration which I had at the start of grade 11. At this time, I was struggling a bit academically, and so naturally, I bumped up the effort which I put into my study. I did this for a few months, but I still wasn't completely satisfied with my grades. I would see friends around school, never studying, and still get grades higher than me. Being a 16-year-old at the time, this was a bit hard to accept. Other than studying harder, what else could I do? So that's what I did. I tried to study even harder. For example, at school, I stopped eating lunch to go to the library and study. On the way to school and back, I studied there too. And then suddenly, from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, I was studying non-stop with my head in the book. But guess what? I still didn't score as high as some of my friends who were putting in minimal effort. It felt like there was nothing much more else I could do. But just when I was about to reach the end of the string, I watched a movie with my dad, and the main character's friend is in tears because he feels like he isn't as smart as those around him. So the main character says this: "Do you know why so many people don't succeed and end up as failures? Instead of looking at their own strength, they look at the strengths of others and they get scared. They lose themselves. In this world, each person is a hero of their own life. Everyone's strength for themselves. If I have a strength, you will also have a strength, and that strength is your hope. Just follow your strength and mark my words, success will come and sit right next to you." That really motivated me, I have to say. And so from then, I've strived to discover my strength, my uniqueness. One thing which I find so amusing is that even though we're all of the same species, we all think in different ways. I find this can be best seen with those who we share DNA with, our parents. Our parents are the two closest people on the planet who we are genetically, physically, and potentially mentally similar to. Yet we always have that small argument at home for the smallest disagreements. A disagreement is nothing but a difference in opinions, a difference in how we think, and a difference in how our minds see something. If I'm so different to someone who I'm related with, imagine how diverse we can be compared to a stranger. The stranger to you and me is over 7 billion people, and hence the extent to which we differ will obviously vary from person to person. To illustrate the uniqueness of our minds, I would like to use an example with two scenarios, of which many of our students might be familiar with: the effects relating to studying with music. Now, in this case, there are only two scenarios, which helps keep things simple, but in reality, there can be cases where our mind takes root of an infinite amount of cases. The example that I'm using here today is a debate that I've had with my parents, with my teachers, and even with the internet. Does music make us work better or worse? So imagine this. There's one day before your exam, and you haven't studied as much as you should. So what do? Well, a natural instinct would be to put your headphones on, open that textbook and start studying for potentially hours and hours, where you go through several theories, several concepts and tasks, but at the same time you might go through several songs, playlists and genres. I'm sure many of us here have done this because for young adults, music is a part of life, and for me it's part of my routine. But do we actually know whether this music is acting as a hindrance to our work? Well, I'm not the first one to ask this, because through a quick Google search, I'm sure you can find many scientific studies that prove that yes, music does act as a hindrance. But why? Well, this comes down to how our mind organizes the information that it's receiving. Say student A is learning about some biology concept, for example, let's say. You put your headphones on and you start reading from your textbook. Your brain understands that we turn on Spotify and start playing that new playlist of ours. Your brain understands that, okay, DNA, supercalls, chromosomes condense, etc. But then out of nowhere, your mind hears, Kiki, do you love me? And your mind goes, hang on, what's this? What I'm hearing has absolutely no connection to what I'm reading. And what comes next? Well, it's a series on confusion, where you end up reading that same biology paragraph 2 or 3 times to actually comprehend the information. Now, you're reading 300 words, when all you needed to do was read 100. And then you probably get fed up and annoyed and say, you know what, who cares about this textbook? I want to go practice my rapping skills. And then we don't end up studying at all. Okay, that's student A. Now, on to student B. Again, it's one day before that exam. You haven't studied as much, so you put your headphones on and you put that playlist on shuffle. 10 minutes in of studying, that motivational song comes on, and the rock emphasizes, it's about drive, it's about power. Makes you work even harder, right? By now you say you've worked for around 1 hour, and take a quick sip of water, you keep going, because you're not fatigued yet. There's no distractions, since things like Mum's rice cooker can't be heard over Drake. 3 hours pass by, maybe now it's time for a break. Take your headphones off, and then you finally realize you don't know what's happened in the world for the last 3 hours. These last few hours have been hardcore studying, and the lack of distractions has allowed you to finish your 4-hour content in only 3 hours. Pretty amazing, right? Now, to summarize, we see for the student A, music can cause for a distraction and makes them work pretty inefficiently, we could say, where they don't end up studying at all. But for student B, music can act as a tool to avoid distractions, makes them more involved in their work, and makes them work even more efficiently. These are complete opposites. Now, who here thinks they're student A? Raise your hand. Anyone? Yeah? A few? Who here thinks they're student B? That's probably me as well. As we can see, there's no right or wrong choice, right? Some can be A, some can be B. Something like music can show how no two human minds will function the same in a situation. Whether it be the genre of music, or the level of volume that we listen to, or even the choice of not listening to music at all, makes us unique in our own ways. This, of course, is not only seen in music, can also be seen in the clothes we wear, the people we like, and even the little pet peeves that we all have. I think our minds are like fingerprints, all unique. I like to think that if our phones could unlock by scanning our personality, then hackers would have a hard time to break in. And so, when we all have this uniqueness within us, I'm sure we all agree that it's only necessary that we use and discover this distinctiveness and use it to our own advantage. If I can do 4 hours worth of work in only 3 hours by simply listening to music to avoid distractions, then you can say I have found one of the many advantages that comes from the uniqueness of my mind. Like that, there will be several ways you can use your mind as almost a cheat code. But for this, we need to know what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. To actually accomplish this may mean going out of your comfort zones. Because if I don't try something, I'll never know if I'm good at it or not, right? Now, we've seen how distinct our minds are within each other. But I've always thought about the future generations. So far, we've seen the rise of technology being used in our daily lives. We know that these pieces of technology don't have a mind of their own, right? Well, it's not always true. I would say it's half true, if that makes sense. So far we have technology, and then we have technology with the ability to learn, called AI. I'm sure all of you have heard of AI, or used it in some form. But the potential of AI is something that I find both amazing, but at the same time, I feel that it's quite unfortunate that we may not be able to witness the whole potential of AI within our lifetimes. Why do I think this? Well, comes back to the uniqueness of our minds, I would say. AI must learn and understand the entirety about not what only I do, but the entirety about what everyone does, if that makes sense. You may be aware of the largest breakthroughs of AI was in 1997, when an AI bot beat arguably the greatest chess player ever, Garry Kasparov. The bot's name was IBM Deep Blue. Although at the time that was pretty amazing, it actually took 50 years of development for that bot to reach the stage where it could beat Kasparov. 50 years. Like this, for an AI, or AI bot you could say, to reach the potential and the capabilities of a human, or even exceed the capabilities of a human, it must learn everything about everyone. All the way from how I hold a toothbrush in the morning to how Lionel Messi scores a free kick. Chess has a finite number of situations and scenarios, which the bot has been able to learn and analyze over the 50 years. But for a bot to learn everything about everyone, it takes time. It's way longer than 50 years. But saying so, as we know, AI does learn and grow at an exponential rate. And we can see improvements in the sector almost every day. This just shows another perspective to the uniqueness of our minds. So, to conclude, I want to leave you all with 3 points, which I hope you at least give it a shot. Point number 1, I want you to explore outside of your comfort zone and almost experiment with your mind. Number 2, I want you to identify that uniqueness. And number 3, I want you to use that uniqueness to your own advantage and show the world who you are. Because I think if we're all able to use 100% of our mind's potential, which I admit is pretty hard to do, but at least if we give it a shot, right? Then we can all be an Elon Musk. Thank you.